You can go 4 weeks without doing any of that. You will have absolutely no problems getting it up, dude. I can almost guarantee it. What's going on, guys? It's Jacob Sunday Lifters. The vest is back out because it is summer in the UK. We're finally getting some good weather, so it's back to the gym. You know, we've got to get the gains in, bro, because you know the arms and stuff are going to be out a lot more. And I realized in the past few videos I've been wearing shirts and stuff like that, but you know, this is where it all began, man, with the lifting. Having said that, today's video is not gym related. It's actually almost like a follow-on from the last video, which was you know, how to stop going bald. Check that out if you haven't already. And today we are going to be talking about another sort of male health problem men face but don't really like talking about. You guessed it, man, it's erectile dysfunction. Ah, man, out of all the things, especially for a young guy to get, this is totally the worst one I can think of personally. You know, some of you may think going bald's worse, and if you had the choice you'd rather have ED, that's fine. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, for me personally, I think a lot of other people, this one would be considered worse. Luckily, you don't have to suffer through either. You can, you know, there's things you can do for your hair. Granted, they include pharmacological intervention, and you can do that to address ED as well. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but today we are going to be talking about things you can do to address the problem that don't require you to take a pill. Now, the only reason I'm suggesting people do this is because sometimes, and for some men, getting ED is not actually a physiological problem, it's a psychological problem that's having physiological implications. So taking medication for erectile dysfunction might just make things worse, in that it gives you random boners, but you still can't, you know, perform without fear of being whacked in the sack, basically. If the problems you're getting like anxiety before sex, or you're not comfortable, you know, in your performance, or you're nervous about your size of your package or something, man, not judging any of those things, you know, I can totally understand why in today's society people feel like they do, especially, you know, men in that department. So if you've had a doctor recommend you take medication to solve the problem, then you know the doctor knows best. That's absolutely fine. But if you are having issues or have had issues in the past and you're a young guy, I would definitely suggest trying some of these things first before jumping on medication, because the problem is jumping on medication, like I say, it might not solve the problem, but it also might be something you become reliant on in order to have sex or get sexual pleasure, which if you're a young guy, that could be for the rest of your life, man. You know, it's a lifelong commitment which you want to avoid if you can. So how many men actually suffer from ED? Drum roll please. Almost every man at some point in their life might have some problem with impotency or erectile dysfunction. It is the most common sexual health problem that occurs. The reason it is the most common sexual health problem is because it has an endless amount of triggers. You know, it can be stress, it can be anxiety, it can be depression, it can be eating too much, too high body fat, too low body fat, lack of exercise, drugs, alcohol, you know, the list is endless. Even too much testosterone can be a problem. Just ask anyone on steroids. So yeah, with so many reasons it can happen, times it being the most common sexual health problem equals pretty much all men getting it at some point. So here is a example for you guys, right? And I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm a 26-year-old man. I am, you know, reasonably healthy. I exercise pretty regularly. I'm in a sort of good BMI category. My diet could be a little bit better if I'm being honest. I smoke, which isn't so good, but all of that being said, I am generally healthy, according to my blood work that I do semi-regularly. I barely ever drink, and all of that combined, guess what? I have had a problem in the past. On two sort of isolated occasions. Thankfully, like I say, they were isolated occasions, but it's happened to me. I went out with my girlfriend at the time, got absolutely shit-faced on alcohol. Went back, and you know, we were both looking forward to a good night, and guess what, we were both very disappointed. Thankfully I don't remember an awful lot from that night, but it happened. So the first time I was wasted, and the second time I was on methyldioxymethamphetamine, MDMA, and that really just screwed me over. Whereas now I think twice about doing both of those things in general, but especially so when I'm going out with the hopes of getting lucky. So with all of that being said, guys, let's now get into the 5 things you can do if you are somebody who is suffering or has suffered with ED. Before I go into that list though, guys, if you could drop this a like, a comment, and consider subscribing if you're not already, it's really appreciated and it does help this channel grow. So given what I just said, it made sense to start number 1, which is control your substance intake. But I'm not here to say don't drink alcohol, don't do drugs. You're an adult, you can make your own decisions about that sort of stuff. You should know the risks, and if you don't, maybe I could do some videos on it. Drop a comment on the bit below. What I'm saying though is, if you are going out on a night out with the boys or something like that with the intention of getting some nookie lad, you need to be aware of what your limit is, how much you're having, and the decisions you are making on that night out. Because you make, you know, drinking too much alcohol for one makes you make stupid decisions. You get overconfident. I understand that people drink alcohol as a form of Dutch courage before they speak to women or ask them out or anything like that. I do that too, totally understand it. But you need to know your limit, and you need to be aware of that, because the last thing you want is to get that golden opportunity with a girl you've put a lot of time and effort into that night, and then absolutely fuck it up, you know, when you get there. And let's face it, if that sort of thing happens the first time you sleep with a girl, if it's someone you're trying to sleep with repeatedly, she's probably not going to give you another chance, and if she does, it's going to take some serious work to get back to that point. And if it was just a one night stand, they're probably just going to be like, okay, this is not what I wanted, get the fuck out. I'm also not going to say like drugs are worse than alcohol, alcohol's worse than drugs. To me, they are both as bad as each other, and people tend to gravitate towards one or the other. Personally, in the past, I've gravitated towards drugs more, because I just seem to have a better tolerance. I'm not that great with alcohol. I also don't like it, and plus, no calories in drugs. I'm joking. Purely from a pragmatic standpoint, alcohol makes sense to be the one you go for, because you haven't got all the, you know, drugs are pretty much illegal. You know, party drugs like MDMA, cocaine, ketamine, whatever, they're probably illegal where you are. But alcohol doesn't have that added risk. Too much alcohol or too much drugs will both ruin your night in 100 different ways, including not being able to get it up when you need to. So control your substances. Number 2, change your weight. Too high of a body weight or body fat percentage, or too low of a body weight / body fat percentage can both cause serious problems in regard to libido, erection quality, and just your general sexual function. If you are someone who is experiencing ED, and you know for a fact that you are you know, overweight or underweight, or have a excessively high / low body fat percentage, doing something about that first might not be a bad place to start. Getting to a healthier weight, you know, a good BMI for your sort of height, your gender, your age, etc. Even though BMI is not perfect, it is a good guide for these sort of things, and doing that will help balance out your hormones like ghrelin and leptin. It'll also help balance out testosterone and estrogen, which all of these, well, not ghrelin and leptin necessarily, but certainly testosterone and estrogen, your balance, your overall balance in the body, does have an effect on your sexual function, basically. Physiologically speaking, everybody has sort of a rough area, a set point where their body operates best in terms of weight and sort of body fat. If you're operating outside of that sort of, you know, ideal set point, things will get affected at varying degrees. If you are an athlete or somebody who does a lot of endurance during the week, you know, somebody who's chronically doing sort of high intensity endurance stuff like miles and miles of walking every day, maybe it's jogging, whatever it is, this can actually, although, you know, exercise is good, this can actually, done chronically, make it so that you're losing sex drive and libido and having ED in some cases. I don't know for sure, but I imagine it's to do with fatigue, low energy outside of training, you know, doing that sort of long endurance training. Although humans are sort of built for it, it is taxing on the body and sort of the immune system. You know, you do get inflammation in the joints and all this kind of thing. It does have a tax on the body, and something has to give. Now what you can do is implement periodic strength-based training, so going to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, lifting some heavy weights and building up a bit of strength. That can actually help with your sex drive, probably mainly due to the fact that resistance training does relieve stress in a really effective way. We can see that in the science. And that brings us on to number 3 really nicely, which is reducing stress. Stress is a tricky one, to be honest, because sometimes people are stressed without even knowing they're stressed. They just sort of power on through, not knowing they're sort of chronically stressed because they can't remember what it's like not to be stressed. The other thing is, when we say stress, we automatically think it's a bad thing, and you know, chronic stress from work, relationships, in our life, those sort of things that last long periods of time, that is bad. But there's also hormetic stressors, I believe that's how it's said, things like ice baths and resistance training, saunas, all those kind of things do put stress on the body, but they're short term and they actually do us quite good. So what we're addressing here is chronic stress, the bad stress. People power through their stress with their willpower but remain chronically stressed over time. You know, again, something has to give at some point, and your body will, you know, something will give. In this case, let's say it's ED, you start experiencing that. That's usually the wake-up call somebody needs to go, okay, right, I need to take a step back and stop letting the mind overdrive. My body is showing signs of deterioration and I need to address it. More and more research is coming forward that suggests that chronic stress is a major contributor towards all-cause mortality in a person, also the development of chronic diseases and accelerated cell aging. So, you know, all of that is just not stuff that we want. Whatever is causing you the stress, whether it's work or your personal relationships, it needs to be addressed sooner or later. Don't be chronically stressed. Life's too good to be short. Number 4, pumping. I'm going to be honest, I had never heard of this one before I started doing the research for this video, but essentially pumping is something that is recommended by the NHS in my country, in the UK. It's actually a great way of you know, dealing with ED without jumping on medication. It's probably not something you'd want to do for life, but it is a good short-term solution. There's actually a lot of research to back the efficacy of these pumpers as well, and also a lot of anecdotal accounts of blokes saying it worked for them. So how it works is essentially in the name. You sort of get this device, you attach it to your penis. You get like a little pump thing that creates like a vacuum that encourages blood flow to the penis, and then you get like a little constriction ring that comes with it, I believe. You put that on the base of the penis to keep the blood in, and then voila, you are ready to go into the bedroom and get business done. So let's be honest, it isn't that glamorous, but you know, like I say, it is recommended by the NHS. It has a lot of science backing it. And also there are some accounts that suggest doing this over time can actually improve natural erection quality. So to me, it's something you'd use as a temporary solution whilst you address perhaps some of the other things on this list. As a side note, contrary to what a lot of people say in this community, I've yet to see any convincing evidence that these machines can increase your penis size. So if you want to use it for that and have a go, that's fine, go for it, but I don't think there's any evidence to suggest it's going to work. Number 5, cut the porn. Look, there's nothing embarrassing about watching porn. Everyone, well, not everyone, but pretty much everyone has done it at some point, or still doing it. People in relationships do it. It's just one of those things. It's out there and it's there to stay. But what you need to do is, it's like everything. Too much of it is bad, especially in regard to sexual health and expectations when it comes to sex. If you don't have a handle on this, it can actually make you somebody who gets reclusive and stops going out there and actually pursuing real women, because you just think you can get a quick fix at home. It's not a good mentality to get into. Men who watch too much porn or masturbate too much will get desensitized to what they're watching, and they'll keep seeking more and more. It's the same as like any drug, basically. And this is why people go deeper and deeper into the recesses of these like sort of websites like Pornhub and all that kind of stuff, finding more and more weird shit to get off on, because they're just getting more and more desensitized. Either that, or they have like a freaky fetish for that like one specific thing that they're searching for. But that's neither here nor there. The other problem is when and if these men do actually get to a point where they might have to have sex with a real woman, or they're going to, they get ED, and it's not the same as sex. Real sex is not like that. This is the expectation problem. People aren't perfect. Sex can be awkward. It's just it's porn is made for men. It's tailored toward men. Women don't necessarily want to be treated like they are in those videos. It's not real. So if you are suffering from ED and you have an honest conversation with yourself and you think you might be watching too much porn or masturbating too much, it's time to get a grip of things. And I can almost guarantee you, if you can go 4 weeks without doing any of that shit, you will have absolutely no problems getting it up, dude. I can almost guarantee it. The other side benefit is, if you're someone who's not actively pursuing women in the real world, this might be the encouragement you need to do that. So there you go, guys. That's the list. They're the 5 things I'd recommend you do first, and try and see if that solves your ED problem. And then if it doesn't, you can consider getting on the meds. You can just go straight on the meds if you want. I'm not telling you not to do that. Like I say, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it necessarily. I'm just saying I personally think it's always better to try and achieve these things naturally, and then that option's always there if you do need it. But don't just do nothing, because life's too short to have these sort of problems. You want meaningful relationships with people. You want to be able to have fun, and that's part of life, So don't just do nothing. Don't keep it bottled up. So there you go, guys. Do you agree, disagree? Have you got any alternative suggestions? Leave a comment down below and like the video if you haven't already. Like I say, you can subscribe and it's hugely appreciated if you do. You can hit that bell icon to stay up to date with any other videos I'm doing. If you want to work with me, you can email me at sundaylifters@gmail.com for workout plans and coaching. You can also follow my socials. It's Instagram and Facebook @SundayLifters. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you back here again very soon.